First of all, I'd like to thank everyone for coming out. I'd like to thank Casey Asher for inviting me here. I'd like to thank the Ford family, Hannah and Tom and his family for even just thinking about me. It's a blessing to be here. I was talking, I wondered, how did I get involved? Similar to the Ford family, I think the night before they were supposed to do the marriages, one of my liberal friends that I constantly debate on Facebook sent me a thing, and I didn't know anything about it. She said, well, how does it feel now that you all going to have gay marriage in Alabama? So I got a deep pit, feeling in my stomach. So after I unfriended her, I got on the phone and I started calling my pastor saying, okay, I know there's going to be a pro-family rally. Just tell me where to go so I can stand in the crowd and just give my support. And turned out there wasn't anything, and one call led to another, and now I'm up here speaking. I'm just a regular guy like everyone else, concerned citizen, but you have to do something. So here I am. And the gay is the new black thing. Really up until that time, they were trying to gay gene, they were trying everything else, and it wasn't really getting any traction. But it wasn't until they attached it to the civil rights that they really started getting traction. The term gay is the new black was in an article, the first time it was coined was by Michael Gross in 2005. And next thing you know, Julian Bond, who was supposed to be the head of the NAACP. Now, normally, when I first heard it, I think the first time I heard it, I think Jesse Jackson was at Evolve, and he used the term that he started equating gay rights to civil rights. Having personally been victim of that during the 60s, I took affront to that. I was really upset, and I thought that everyone else and all of my black friends would get upset. When it first came out about 10 to 12 years ago, that was the reaction. But today, some of the biggest supporters now of gay rights are black people, and particularly black Christians. Julian Bond, a former head of NAACP at a banquet in 2005, said that sexual disposition parallels race. I was born this way. I have no choice. I would not change it if I could. Michael Steele, if you remember, the former chairman of the Republican National Committee, was a black man. And when when I remember seeing Michael Steele and he was a black conservative, I'm like, wow, I'm not the only one. So I was happy to see him, and I had great hopes for him. I thought that, generally when you find a black conservative, they're usually dyed in the wool extreme conservatives, people clinging to their Bibles and guns. So I assumed that he was going to be that type of guy. It turned out he was no better than the rest of them. He actually stated to GQ magazine interview, he said that, oh no, I do not think I've ever really subscribed to that view that you can turn it on and off like a water tap. I think there's a whole lot that goes into the makeup of an individual that you just can't simply say, oh, like tomorrow morning I'm going to stop being gay, like saying tomorrow morning I'm going to stop being black. So you see the attitudes and how it's changed. And now, actually, I got to hand it to them. Up until that time, they were trying, doing everything they can, doing scientific studies, and until that point, they couldn't really find anything. But once they attached it to being gay, the civil rights, anyone that actually even hinted that they were against gay rights, it was like you now are an implied racist. If you're against civil rights, then therefore you're against black people. And nobody wants to be considered to be a racist. Therefore, that was one way to shut people down. And it was like, for example, nobody look at you like you know better than Wallace. The problems with their position is, of course, that homosexuality is a behavior, and they're comparing it to skin color. For example, I can't wake up tomorrow and decide that I no longer want to be black. Okay? Now there are no former black people, but there are several thousand former homosexuals. Also, sexual attraction does come with it a moral and an immoral quality. And there is no constitutional right to fulfill your sexual desires. Also mentioning the studies, the studies that they conducted in 1990, where they did a brain study, they did a twin study, and they did a genes. What they did for the brains was they wanted to look and see, and let's compare the size of brains and look and see if there are any, significant markers in the brains. They couldn't find anything. Also, they looked at identical trends, and they couldn't find anything there. And then, of course, you all may have heard about the gene study. But the American Psychiatric Association, which is very pro-gay, they said to date there are no replicated scientific studies supporting any specific biological etiology for homosexuality. So therefore, they decided at that point, hey, let's go with the civil rights movement. Once they did that, you got the SPLC identifying anybody, particularly this group, anybody that disagrees with homosexuality as being a hate group. If you go in and look at their list now, you will see the majority of a lot of people now right next to the Klan, the Nazis, and they got very few terrorist organizations, by the way, but you will see several Christian organizations, and the main reason that they're on that list is for their opposition to homosexuality. And it's because, once again, they stated that it is a civil right. So therefore, anybody that opposes it is a hate group. And another thing that really affected me was the hardships that the black people, in order to get civil rights, had to go through compared to gay people. Charles Weinkauf, who is a conservative gay journalist, stated that, newsflash, blacks in America didn't start out as hip-hop fashion designers. They were slaves. There's a big difference between being able to enjoy civil union with the same-sex partner of your choice and not being able to drink out of a water fountain, eat at a lunch counter, or use a restroom because you don't have the right skin color. Gays today, to be openly gay is a great career move in certain industries. You have openly gay politicians, CEOs, athletes, celebrities, professors, and the media. I, for one, boycotted Sports Center because they were promoting this black guy that came out, what was he, a football player? And I just got sick of it. He even won an ESPY. So for a few months, and you got to understand, I'm a big sports fan, it was hard for me to even watch it. So to come out today to be gay is a big thing. And we all know what they did to Tim Tebow. Tim Tebow comes out and prayed, and they vilified him. Everybody rooted against him. During Jim Crow and slavery, you could not hold any position of power. We were denied service. We were forced into servitude. We were considered property. And of course, there's a lynching, and you could not hide. Being a black guy, walking in certain areas, if I was called in a certain place at a certain time, it would be very dangerous for me. If there's a gay person right now in this crowd, unless he stands out, and I don't see any protesters today, unless they stand out and announce themselves, we will not know. When I was growing up, and I was walking down the street in my neighborhood, which was at that point, it was a changeover, it was 50-50 black and white. And I remember some white guys, they used to come down the street every now and then. They would go by and they would throw things out and hit some of the black people that were walking down the street. And I usually have my head on the swivel, but this time I wasn't paying attention. And I remember getting hit in the back so hard. And you all remember those 32-ounce Coke bottles with the big, thick bottom? Those things were pretty hard to destroy. You can break the bottle, but that little thick the bottom would last forever. And I remember getting hit in the back and knocked the wind out of me. And while I'm trying to get myself together, when I looked up, they were going down the street too. One of them had a crutch, and they were going down the street hitting all the black people, right? At the same time, I remember also walking into a store, and a white guy came up to me and basically cussed me out and called me everything under the sun. Now, I'm 52. I'm not a very old guy, so this would happen to me while I was young. But, when you're a little 5-year-old kid, you remember that when you get thrown out of a store simply because of your skin color. If a homosexual right now walks into just about any establishment and do not ask you to participate in their union, 9 times, well, they're going to get service just like anyone else. But during this Jim Crow, when you walk in, simply because you're black, you will not get any service. So it's not the same thing, and we cannot compare it and look at it as if it's a civil right. Also, interracial marriage. One of the things is saying, well, you know what? They love each other. It's just like when you tried to stop, and they tell you, just like you tried to stop black people from marrying white people. But see, the difference is that in order for that to be passed, they were writing a bigotry against black people. During that time, white people could marry any other race, but they just couldn't marry black people. Also, when they made that law, did away with that, it did not require the redefinition of marriage. Marriage right now, regardless of whatever it is, the one thing that it is a marriage between a man and a woman. Once they do this and they redefine marriage, what's to stop now a polygamist from coming up? I've heard stories of 2 women marrying 2 other women. I mean, at this point, once you redefine marriage, where will you stop? And what about the pedophiles? I mean, if you want to look at marriage as being a civil right based off behavior, then does not a pedophile have the right to say, well, I'm predisposed to this way and this is my behavior? So there's all sorts of things. What about bisexuals? So if you look at a guy and say, well, you know what, I'm predisposed, I'm attracted to men and women. So why can I not marry both? So this is what we open it up to. And in conclusion, Dietrich Bonhoeffer, a German Lutheran pastor and theologian who was executed by the Nazis for standing up and speaking out against the Nazis, he said that silence in the face of evil is evil itself. God would not hold us guiltless. Not to speak is to speak, not to act is to act. Many Christians today have been bullied, and I know you all are not the ones because you're here. But I run into a lot of Christians that tell me, say, Green, it doesn't take all that. Why are you doing that? You know, and a lot of them, they tell you, Green, you might not want to say that. You might not want to, quietly, they'll shoot you a little message. You might not want to say that. I look at it this way. What is your 30 pieces of silver? For them, that 30 pieces of silver is their house, cars, jobs, friends. I mean, many of them not even willing to lose a Facebook friend for Jesus. Matthew 5:13 states, ye are the salt of the earth, but if the salt have lost its savior, wherewith shall it be salted? It is thenceforth good for nothing, but to be cast out and to be trodden under foot of men. When you rub salt in an open wound, which is sin, you're going to upset a whole lot of people, and you can expect him to feel the pain. So, Ezekiel 22:30, and I sought for a man among them that should make up the hedge and stand in the gap before me for the land, that I should not destroy it, but I found none. I don't want it to be said that when Jesus talked to me and said, you know what, I was looking for someone to stand in the gap, but I couldn't find anybody. So I want to say, leave you with this, will you stand in the gap? Thank you.